Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
We go upside down.
Stand strong. The day is here. The battle's near. Put on the armor. Yeah. Belt the truth around my waist. Feet of peace, I take my place. Breastplate shining righteousness. Shield of faith, no fear, no death. Helmet of salvation, crown. The word of spirit cuts them down. Darkness trembles, shadows fall. I'm clothed in fire, I hear the call. Armor of God, I will not yield. Stand in the light, my sword, my shield. Against the night, against the light. The armor of God will never die. Every scheme and every snare
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic end to your week, getting ready for the weekend out there. Tonight, we have a very special show for you. We're going to take a break just from the news. A few different updates, though. We got this show here that's going to play right now. This is live. Yes, it is live. And I see a lot of people coming in and joining in, watching Rumble and some of the other chats. And then right after this, Conversations on the Fringe with Jeff Wong. He's going to have Mike King on. So you're going to have a back-to-back show on the Red Pill Project. So I'm hoping that you guys enjoy all of that tonight. And so I thought, like, I could sit here and I could do the news for an hour, or I could bring a guest on and talk about a very, very important topic. And I think that this is the right time to talk about this topic, considering where we are right now in the Trump administration, what's happening in the world, what's unfolding in the world. Terry Beatley is going to join me here in a minute. And we've done a 3-part series on my Substack. And I want you to go check this out if you have not already on my Substack, because it's highly informative. We're going to talk about some of these things tonight, but we're never going to cover everything that we had in here. But if you go onto my Substack and you search for Save the Children, the Silent Genocide, the Depopulation Agenda, you will find a 3-part series with Terry Beatley and myself. And here, I'm pulling this up right now. So you can find this out there, and it's on our Substack. It's a great series of Save the Children, the Silent Genocide. It goes into the history of eugenics and goes into a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight, specifically this guy right here, Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And we're going to talk about Terry's story and how she is trying to lead the fight to end abortion around the world in this country, to save the children in all different walks of life, as well as we're going to talk a little bit about the titties. And I know that sounds a little weird and perverted, but I'm telling you, there's something that you don't know that you're going to learn tonight that is going to wake you up. So Terry Beatley, after serving 14 years in investment management and serving as director of Virginia's parental rights, Terry channeled her tenacity into pro-life activism, following a divinely inspired interview with Dr. Bernard Nathanson on December 1st, 2009, the father of America's abortion industry, commissioned Terry to bring his parting message to the nation. As a result of this meeting, Terry founded Hosea Initiative, a grassroots organization dedicated to teaching the strategy of how Dr. Nathanson deceived America. And she is an author. In 2016, she published a book, What If We've Been Wrong? Keeping My Promise to America's Abortion King. And she has continued to help educate people around this country and around the world, speaking at events nationwide, bringing all of this information that we're going to talk about tonight to all of you. So I hope that you guys pay attention, you listen, you take some notes, and if you can, go out there and help to join the community and support the Hosea Initiative like I have been over the past, almost like 10 months now. But what I want you to understand here is that we are in a massive population decline, not just in this nation, globally. Right now, and I'm going to spit some numbers out at you. In order to increase our population in the United States of America, you have to have an over 2.3% growth rate year after year. If you just account for the everyday average Americans, that sits at about 1.7 to 1.8% growth, which means that our population is going to begin declining. There's a numerous amount of factors that go into this. One of those is government, one of those is regulation, another is private and corporate industry. But a large portion of that, and if we've done the math, if you take the number of abortions performed in the United States of America, it actually recompensates that number to where we'd have a population growth. So this is why this conversation is so critically important. And I'm going to bring in Terry Beatley. Terry, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Have more babies.
Have more babies. That's right.
Wow.
So Terry, talk to me a little bit about kind of how you got into all of this. Like, I mean, Dr. Bernard Nathanson. I had never heard of Dr. Bernard Nathanson until you mentioned something. We've done shows together. Nobody in those shows has ever heard of Dr. Bernard Nathanson. Nobody in the world's ever heard of Dr. Bernard Nathanson, but he is the king of the modern abortion industry. So how did you find out? And then how did you get an interview with him?
That's a great question. Thank you for having me on. Let's see. How did I meet Dr. Nathanson? How did I find out about him? When I was in my 40s, I was homeschooling my 2 girls. I'd stepped out of the corporate world to homeschool, and I had discovered in Virginia the domestic threat to my parental rights. And when I realized that it was actually the abortion industry that had eviscerated my parental rights in Virginia, I was like a mother bear. Sorry about my computer screen.
Yeah,
I'm setting, it's going in and out and I don't know how to stop it. And I forgot to ask you how to fix that. But anyway, so when I discovered that my local delegate had sold out my parental rights to the abortion industry, I was like a mother bear on fire, because nothing could make me angrier than some politician taking away my parental rights. So I became just a volunteer Virginia coordinator for parentalrights.org. And I think this was back in the early Obama years. And I was traveling all over Virginia teaching, didn't matter, Democrats, Republicans, independents, NAACP, church groups, anybody who would listen, to help to try to educate them about the domestic and international threat to parental rights because of the abortion industry, because of the promiscuity industry. And I remember when I took my 14-year-old for a sports physical with this Christian pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, "Terry, I am so sorry, but I have to ask your daughter something." And I'm like, "Sure, what's that?" And she looked at my daughter and she said, "Can your mother stay in the room with us?" This is for a regular sports physical, right?
Yeah.
And I still remember feeling my pulse rate. It's like I could feel it, hear it in my ear. It's like, oh my gosh, I knew what the promiscuity industry had done, but I'd never applied it to myself. And so that was the very beginning, because afterwards, the pediatrician said, "Terry, you got to understand this. Your daughter could be pregnant, dying of syphilis, be sick with gonorrhea, and I can't tell you unless your daughter gives me permission." So that was the law, which it still is, as far as I know.
It's the law here. It is absolutely the law here.
Years old. So the question is that I think it's imperative, and as we talk about these issues, right now, we're not talking about, oh, Terry's trying to convince you to be pro-life and you think you're pro-choice or pro-abortion. We're not debating that right now. We have to figure out, Josh, as a nation, how the hell did we get to the point where parents, I don't care what state you're in, you can kiss your parental rights goodbye by the time your kids are 12, 13, 14 years old. The question is, how the hell did that happen? Because that's not how this country always was. Mm-hmm. And the answer to it, to a large degree, is we have an industry called the promiscuity and abortion industry, and they make millions and billions of dollars off of our kids, off of adult apathy. And when we finally wake up, I believe then and only then are we going to be able to save our nation and save our national sovereignty. And I can argue that, because when I got started with the parental rights issue, that, like I said, that was back in Obama years. And there was an international treaty called the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child Treaty. And I shared this the other day, by the way, on the Jason Q show, is back then, granted, there's not much of a threat now, but it's because we've primarily lost our parental rights. Okay. But back then it was all about turning over to an unelected, unelected officials on the United Nations over in Geneva, Switzerland. They would determine, this unelected board of bureaucrats, what's in the best interests of our own children in America. And I think this is so important that people understand that when you start hearing the words like, oh, the Senate's considering ratification of a treaty, the treaty supersede American law. Law.
To a degree. So number one is no treaty that Congress or Senate can, or the president can negotiate or go into, can ever supersede the Constitution. It can be legally fought in the courts, but they did try it. They tried it during COVID with the WHO and WHO policies, with the adoption of the WHO. And you're right, they did try it with this one as well. And would we legally win in court? Yeah, but it would take a lot of money to win in court, and all of that would already be in effect. And basically how it works, I believe, is what you're saying, is if that treaty was adopted, is this wouldn't be structured in government, it'd be structured in corporatism. It'd be the medical organizations. It would be the CPS industry. It would be all of these that conform to those policies in alignment, like the CDC did with the WHO.
Yeah, the UNCRC treaty, which I know right now it's dead in the water, but to a large degree we've already lost our parental rights. But the way that was structured is every child would get a government employee, so they could call up and they could say, look, I'm 14, 15 years old and my mom and dad don't like my boyfriend, and I think I have the right to go on to birth control and have abortions when I want them, and I don't think it's any of my parents' business, and I should have at 15 years old or whatever the right to have all the sex I want, the reproductive freedom, and you, government official, need to protect me from my mean daddy and mommy. And that's the way it works.
Well, and that's the way it works right now. I mean, that's quite literally the policy that is being passed in California as we speak. That they've made it in California so kids have more rights in school than their parents. What I mean by that is if a kid goes into their council, or actually all schools now, and this wasn't a thing when I was in school, they have social workers in every single school across the nation, government workers directly in the school. These kids can go in there and they can go into that social work and they say that, you know, my mommy and daddy aren't letting me do what I want, and I want to be able to go out there and get on birth control because I want to regulate my period and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And that social worker will call CPS. That social worker will begin investigations into those parents. And yes, this is a very, very real thing, and it's happening.
And I think as parents, my kids are grown, okay, but I'm still fighting this because, and I proved actually in the state of Virginia back in 2011, I wrote the book about it. What if we've been wrong? I encourage everybody to get it, read it, and go right on to Amazon. And it's not because I want to sell millions of books. I absolutely want to sell millions of books because I want millions of American parents to wake the heck up. Because until we understand what these politicians are doing and have done to a large degree, you know, we've lost our children. So anyway, so that's where we kind of connect on all of this. So Dr. Bernard Nathanson, I had been Virginia coordinator for parentalrights.org. And this was like in 2007, 2008. Now it's the year 2009. And I have been trying to book an appointment with a Black minister in Virginia to talk about the threat of the UNCRC treaty. But in the interim, I watched a new documentary called Maafa. It's Maafa, Black Genocide in the 21st Century. And it's all about the racist population control industry of Planned Parenthood. And I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I'm supposed to really be reaching out to this minister about that. And I picked up the phone, called the man again. We had been playing phone tag for about 4 or 5 months. And anyway, he answered. And we both laughed at how many times we'd played phone tag. And I said, Pastor Bibbins, you know, I was originally calling you only on the domestic and international threat to parental rights, but I really believe we're supposed to meet so I can share with you this 2.5-hour documentary about the racist population control plan of government subsidized Planned Parenthood. This is government funded racism, government funded eugenics, government funded population control. And he actually said, you actually need 3 hours with me. And I said, yes, sir, I do. So anyway, we booked it it was April of 2009. And that changed the whole trajectory of my life because of what happened at that meeting. When I walked up his steps that day, I was begging God not to let me talk about politics because it was an election year. And I didn't want him to think I was just there for some political party, a particular party vote.
Right.
I just wanted to love this man with the truth of Planned Parenthood. And I had already read all about it, but this one documentary just so summed it up with a horrible bow on top. Okay. And it's like, it's a documentary that every American should see this. So anyway, so we booked the appointment for April of 2009. And at the end of the movie, at the end of the documentary, I said, Pastor Bibbins, tell me what you think. And he said, I'll tell you what I think. I will never again vote for a pro-abortion candidate for as long as I live. For if I do, I'm voting to annihilate my own race. And furthermore, I get it. He's like, abortion's wrong. And I'm like, whoa. So I pulled my pom-poms out of my briefcase and I did a little dance. I'm just kidding, but boy, I wanted to. But I will tell you this, my analogy for it, I remember looking over at the window at the curtains, and the curtains weren't heavy. It was like they were just shears. And my analogy is this: we can save America and we can save our children, because there are all sorts of tentacles, claws trying to wrap around our children. And if it doesn't kill the baby in the womb, the tentacles are trying to get the baby by the vaccines full of, formaldehyde and aluminum and all the other crap that's in these vaccines, which, by the way, this week, right, you've probably heard it, where the burden of proof on the childhood vaccines is now on the CDC. The CDC has to prove that the vaccines don't cause autism, right? And according to, what is it called? RFK's organization?
The Children's Defense Network.
Right. Yeah, with Mary Holland, the lawyer for that, she's like, it's great because now the burden of proof, it's poof, back on the CDC, because they've been telling us for years these vaccines are okay for our kids, and no, they're not. And she just shook her head. She's like, we got all the proof that these vaccines do cause cancer. So anyway, but this crazy wheel of trying to steal our children in one form or fashion, and we'll complete that wheel maybe before our time is up. But anyway, so I went into prayer in that summer after we did a 2-night program at this primarily Black church in Virginia, and the people made me promise I would never quit. And so months later, I'm in prayer and I'm just really begging God, what do you want me to do with these amazing experiences of crossing the racial divide, realizing that life leads, life can win, life can heal our nation? Because back to the curtains, it was as if the curtains were just like little lightweight shears. They were not heavy. And it was, sorry about the camera again. But it was like God was revealing that if we, the people, would just love each other with the truth. And sometimes the truth is ugly, and it's like downright ugly, to learn the truth about government-funded Planned Parenthood. But that truth, if we're willing to invest our lives into other people's lives and love them with the truth, it was so easy. They were begging me to run for political office, which I have no, inspiration or aspiration to do. So anyway, so I was at a prayer vigil in November 2009, really begging God to reveal to me, what am I supposed to do with all this information and these amazing experiences? And all I could hear was go interview Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And for your listening audience, which I presume 99.9% of the people have never heard of this doctor, he's the father of America's industry of abortion. He unleashed abortion onto America by using propaganda. And he trained Planned Parenthood doctors who back then in the late 60s and early 70s were not doing abortions. He trained them how to slaughter God's children in the womb. And then in 1973, the same year we got Roe v. Wade, Dr. Nathanson, who was the chief of obstetrics at St. Luke's Hospital in New York City, they roll in a brand new technology called
First, hold on. Didn't he also have a NRAIL?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Way before real-time ultrasound. In the late 1960s, he partnered up with the first Lawrence Lader, who worked for the first card-carrying communist on Capitol Hill. And they formed the first pro-abortion political action organization. Today it's called NARAL, Pro-Choice America, NARAL. That back then it stood for the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws. So they were trying to repeal all pro-life laws in all 50 states. Okay. So
Lawrence Lader, he ends up becoming a part of Planned Parenthood.
Well, no, technically no. Guttmacher does. Lawrence Lader was the best friend, and they speculate a lover of Margaret Sanger, who was considerably older than he was, but he wrote and published in 1966 the first biography, the first approved biography of Margaret Sanger. Okay, so when she died in 1966, it's as if she passed her population eugenics baton over to Lawrence Lader in 1966. It was almost as if, with a kiss on his cheek, you take it from here, baby. Control population. So he's up in New York City. He's a trust fund kid. He's living off daddy's trust fund. Okay. And he had done a few other things. And I think he had already worked for the first card carrying communist on Capitol Hill. But he reaches out to Dr. Nathanson, who by that time was an OBGYN. Dr. Nathanson thought legalizing abortion would be the right thing for women. And he already had abortion under his belt because he had already paid for the abortion of one of his children. He had gotten a girlfriend pregnant back in med school. He loved this girl, but he didn't think having a baby in med school would be the right thing. But it destroyed their relationship. And he says that was his first step into the satanic world of abortion. And then after he had become a doctor, he gets another girlfriend pregnant. And this time he performs the abortion on his own child. And he didn't have second thoughts, got it done within 30 minutes, didn't think twice about it. So now then he partners up with Lawrence Lader, and Lawrence Lader, being politically savvy, he says, look, this is going to require political victory. And we're first going to start in the state of New York, because New York had a 140-year-old law that protected babies in the womb. And he said, look, we got to start in ARAL, and we got to set out first with New York. Well, with propaganda, 8 points of propaganda, they overturned the New York law protecting babies in the womb that had been on the books for 140 years. They overturned it in 18 months, making New York the most aggressive pro-abortion state in the country, where they could abort babies through the 24th week of pregnancy. Okay. So anyway, so that's 1970. That was passed in April of 1970. Then Dr. Nathanson is asked to run the largest abortion mill. We don't call them clinics. Clinics is where you go to get well. We call them either abortuaries or an abortion facility. Do not use the terminology clinic, because they're not clinics. But anyway, so he goes and starts running the largest abortuary, where they were killing about 800 to 900 babies per week. Now, of course, that's pretty much what they do per day, I believe, if you crunch the numbers on it. But anyway, back then it was like huge numbers. And he runs that. So for another 65,000 babies. So he's personally responsible for 75,000 babies, the death. And then he's tired, and he goes to work as the chief of obstetrics at St. Luke's Hospital in New York. Now, don't let the name fool you. Right. They were killing babies on one floor, and they're birthing babies on another floor. But he would find it, Josh, very confusing some days, when he was just exhausted trying to remember, because, if you can imagine this, it's New York. So what if the woman's in there having, perhaps they're trying to stop a miscarriage at 24 weeks, but wait a minute. Or is he really there to kill the baby at 24 weeks? Which floor is he on? So anyway, so that's Dr. Bernard Nathanson. In 1973, the same year we get the Roe v. Wade decision, which he celebrated. He was on the news. He was being interviewed. And then about 6 months or so later, he couldn't remember exactly when, but the hospital rolls in a brand new technology called real-time ultrasound. And what Americans don't know is that the father of America's industry of abortion sees the baby for the very first time on real-time ultrasound. And he can now, this is so key, because before they could only hear the heartbeat. Now he's literally seeing the heartbeat on real-time ultrasound. He had seen grainy photographs of the baby, but now it's live, real time, as we're all used to today. And so the father of the abortion industry tells me when I'm interviewing him on December 1st, 2009, he said real-time ultrasound was the bomb. It made everything come alive. And he could feel himself bonding with the baby because the baby was yawning. You know, she's sucking her thumb, she's wiggling her toes, she's stretching, she's yawning. And the father of the abortion industry recognizes he has a second patient.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll pick the story up because it has everything to do with how you opened up the show today.
Well, it is. And I mean, this darkness, this evil goes back a long time. And we've laid out the historical context of this with Margaret Sanger and the Rockefellers and the things that they've done, feeding off of eugenics court systems that were in place in the late 19th century and the implementation, the Rockefellers funding that throughout the nation in the early 1900s. And then after World War II, the Flexner Report, which comes in and establishes the modern kind of medical system that we have. Mm-hmm. Which is really not pro-life, but is more of a derivation of these eugenics controlled systems that were being implemented previous to World War II. And then you get the birth of radical feminism. Then you get the birth of communism and the infiltration of this, which if anybody thinks that they're pro-life, you're absolutely nuts because they are not. But one person I actually wanted you to talk about a little bit, and then we can get into Dr. Bernard Nathanson and your promise to him is Kate Millett and kind of how she fits into this whole puzzle.
Yeah, Kate Millett, this is all in around 1968, 1969. Kate Millett was a fallen away Catholic. And I know all this secondhand via her sister, Mallory. Mallory is on our advisory board of Hosea Initiative, which is the educational nonprofit that I run. So Mallory's sister, Kate, died back in 2017. And I reached out to Mallory. Back then I had a podcast and I said, Mallory, I really want to interview you to learn more about your sister and what she did. And we ended up writing a fact check booklet, which I'm hoping this is not backwards for your camera. Is that backwards?
It is, but I'll show you how to fix that another time.
Oh, okay. Shoot, I meant to fix it. But it's called Marxist Feminism's Ruined Lives. So Kate Millett, she grew up in a Catholic family. She fell away and she became a radical Marxist, communist, feminist radical. And she co-founded the National Organization for Women, okay, which is a Marxist communist organization that teaches young women how to hate men, hate marriage, and how to deconstruct Western civilization. So if you or your listening audience, I don't know the average age, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I bet many of your listeners, if they went to college, they heard of degrees, a degree that you could get in women's studies.
It's now gender study degrees.
Yes, yeah. That's all from Kate Millett, Josh. This was her. She was on the front cover of Time magazine, and Time actually called her the Karl Marx of the 60s or 70s, the Karl Marx, right? So I'm happy to read it, but I encourage people to go to the website Josh just put up there, hoseaforyou.org. Go to our shop and order, and both fact check booklets. They're little 4x6 fact check booklets. We literally have men who put these fact check booklets in their back pocket in the morning with their wallets, because I've had a man from Oregon call me one day and he's like, Terry Beatley, I just read your Marxist Feminism Ruins Lives booklet. He's like, I now know what went wrong with my wife. I guess it was like 20 years ago. He's like, she was a happy stay-at-home housewife. And then she all of a sudden turned and she became radicalized, discontent, divorced him, indoctrinated their teenage daughter into being pro-abortion, radical Marxist feminists. And he's like, it imploded his whole life. That is literally what this booklet is about. But in the words of Kate's own sister, Mallory, explaining the methodical plan to deconstruct Western civilization. And we're living in it.
Well, yeah, and this, so if everybody out there who's wondering, you're like, wow, this sounds really reminiscent of the radical left that we see today. This was the base foundation that was laid for it. And I don't think people really see that you have the convergence of two radical ideologies. Number one is eugenics, and number two is Marxism, and communism, socialism, democratic socialism. And then this spans off other kind of ideas that were played with for a long time philosophically, like feminism. And now you get radical feminism with the counterculture revolution that comes about in the 1960s. And then anybody, I was just, actually, I got a book right here that was sent to me from a friend of mine, and this is Owsley and Me, My LSD Family, and this is from Roni Owsley, who was a lab tech and friend of Bear Owsley, who or Owsley Stanley, who happened to be, if you ever seen the Grateful Dead, you know, the Grateful Dead dancing bears, this is the people who started all that. Wow. And they were the ones that made the LSD for the Grateful Dead, and they toured with the Grateful Dead, and they dosed entire audiences. But the whole point of it was that this was CIA. This was the intelligence agencies running these counterculture operations. You get into ideas like what's called Laurel Canyon's conspiracy. I don't know if you ever heard of the Laurel Canyon conspiracy and during the counterculture. Frank Zappa, Jim Morrison. You have who else? Jim Morrison. You have Frank Zappa. You have what was her name? Me and Bobby McGee. Janis Joplin. Yeah. You have all of these people died at 27, but they were also lived and grew up within a 10-mile square area of Laurel Canyon.
Wow.
And there's more of them in there, and they all had parents that were military officers. And it's kind of interesting because what you see is that, and we know in San Francisco, you go to Hyatt and Ashbury, that you had Ken Kesey and all these guys, the married pranksters that came down that were running the acid tests for the intelligence agencies, which was just a branch off, an appendix of MK Ultra. And seeing how to test these drugs in public and doing these public testings. And this is the LSD test and the sugar cube test that they used to do. And they started it actually at a Grateful Dead concert just outside of Hyatt and Ashbury in San Francisco. But this was kind of the start of that counterculture revolution. But this is where that infusion of those two radical ideologies began to take place. This is why hippies lived in what? Communes. They started doing communal living, and they tried to find a peaceful methodology to bring everybody together. And I mean, they weren't wrong in the context that humans should live in small, like 125 person communities, because that's actually where we thrive. That's the tribal living that we grew up with. If you go back, 5,000, 6,000 years. But having a government and economic structure that is formulated with the idea of centralization is completely asinine towards these ideological preferences. So the whole leftist movement that we're talking about derived from the foundation of these two radical ideologies that bring about the countercultural revolution, and that countercultural revolution, tipping off of the Vietnam War, began to reestablish this framework of what we know of today as the radical left, which in the 1960s, the left was the racist Democrats, the ones that put the black people in the ghettos, the ones that put out the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which was not something that was beneficial to black people. I don't think people know this, though, is that in the 1940s and the 1950s, black people in America were the highest paid skilled workers in the country.
Yes.
They made up the majority of the middle class.
Right. Yeah. And they were married with children at home.
And then after the Civil Rights Act, that all went away. That started to go away very, very fast, because that was what I think LBJ was intentionally trying to do. That these were racist eugenicists who were trying to kill and destroy the black families and communities. And what did they do? They brought stricter drug laws out there. They started pumping drugs into these inner cities after they centralized people into the inner cities, into the ghettos. And
then they put the abortion mills in the Planned Parenthood, the vast majority. of the abortuaries were right in the inner
62
city.
million. I think 62 million is a number of black abortions that have occurred since the 1960s to present day. 62 million. And
well, wait a minute, hold on. I got to fix that number. Take about 36% of that number. So it's about 65 million abortions since 1973. But the interesting part is, well, not so much interesting, it's skewed. It's 36% of those abortions are of Black children.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't that weird, though, that only 3 to 4% of the population are Black fertile women? Because you can't count an 86-year-old Black grandma, right? So it's only 3 to 4% of the population are Black women of childbearing age, but yet they make up 36% of all abortions. And if Black Americans do not wake up to this quickly, they're going to be
eradicated.
gone.
Yeah.
They're going to be gone. It's like wake up time. So that's what I realized, Josh, years ago, was that if we want to save America, one of the most unifying and easy things to do to build trust is save a life. Okay. In fact, I spoke about that at Badlands Media, the
Great American Restoration Tour.
Yeah, in Cocoa Beach. Because one of the topics was, how do you build trust in a trustless society? Well, I couldn't sit down any longer. It's like I got to go to the microphone. Go save a life. Go sit down with a Black minister. If you're white, go sit down with a Black minister and show them the Ma'afa 21 a documentary for 2.5 hours. Nobody can look at you like, I don't trust you. Because if you're there to save lives through love, our motto, one of the two at Hosea Initiative, is to love people with the truth. And like I said, sometimes it's the ugly truth, but it's the truth. And it's time to wake the hell up. Or it's just more death. Now, something else interesting, since we're talking about like Black Americans, breast cancer is very high among Black women. But across the board, breast cancer is one of the main rising types of cancer. And it is, and I don't know how long we have tonight, because this could always be part two.
Jump into this part. I like this part's good.
For some reason,
it's about saving the titties. We got to save the titties.
So I only said, Josh, I'm okay with that title because I'm old enough to be his mother. So, but it's true. So what people don't know is that there is a connection between the rapid rise of breast cancer since 1973 and the legalization of abortion. Back in 1973, in situ breast cancer was like 1 in 12 women. Today, it's 1 in 7.
Wow. And
people need to wake up. And before I forget about it, I encourage everybody to, you can live stream this film. It's called Hush. So if you Google, if you search, sorry, I got a stiff neck, If you Google Hush, but look for the Statue of Liberty, she's been photoshopped with her finger like over her mouth, like, shh, be quiet. And just type in Hush breast cancer. Watch that film. Watch that film. I go across the country, teaching lectures on this, and it's one more way to unite on life. Okay, God has what the best protection against breast cancer is? Let a young woman give birth to her first baby. Don't abort that baby. It doesn't matter if you're 14, 15, 16 years old. That baby ends up being your best protection against breast cancer. Because what the average person doesn't understand. So we're going to talk boobs now, okay? We're going to get real. All right. So, and I got a few notes just to keep me on track. The structure, so just know there is a connection. That documentary called Hush will give you the back data. And it's really cool because it's a Hindu lady. I think she's from Canada. She heard, breast cancer runs in her family. So she started doing research on how she could reduce her risk of breast cancer. And she discovered that hormonal, as in like hormonal birth control, contraception, drastically increases breast, cervical, and liver cancer. We'll cover that on a different night. Okay, it's too much to get into all that. But as she was discovering this and doing her research, she stumbles into some more research, the connection between abortion and breast cancer. And what she discovers, like if we think Fauci was some big cover up, wait till your listening audience will watch that film called Hush. And then you can go on to Breast Cancer Prevention Institute, BCPI, Breast Cancer Prevention Institute. And if you click on brochures, your audience can, actually, I have one teed up. If you want me to share my screen, I could show it. But the main thing is you can get all this for free on BCPI, I think .org, Breast Cancer Prevention Institute, and go to brochures. So Josh, what time do we cut off tonight? Because I don't want to be too long.
We got about 20 minutes.
20. Okay. I'm just going to give just a little scratch the surface thing, just in a very elementary way. And I can go more in depth on another call, or your people just need to go on to Breast Cancer Prevention Institute and then swing back over to Hosea Initiative. Why? Because the father of the abortion industry, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who I ended up interviewing on December 1st, 2009, he deeply grieved. I got to cover this part before I go into the breast cancer part. He deeply grieved unleashing abortion onto America. Okay. And he did not know back because he became 100% pro-life. By 1979, the father of America's industry of abortion was 100% pro-life. So when I interviewed him on December 1, 2009, at the end of the interview, I said, Dr. Nathanson, if you have a message for America, tell me what it is, and I'll deliver it across our country. And he said, yes. He said, teach the strategy of how I deceived America. It's an 8-point strategy. And then he said, and then tell America that the co-founder of NARAL says to love one another. Abortion's not love. Stop the killing. The world needs more love. And I'm all about love now. And I reached over and I shook this dying man's hand. He was 83. He was dying of cancer. And I promised him I would deliver his message across America and teach how he deceived us with this crazy idea that abortion is women's health care. It's anything but, okay? Mm-hmm. It's anything but. And it's the reason why abortion is one of the, I don't know if it's but it's one of the fastest growing types of cancer. And it's because of this vicious cycle. And Josh and I are going to make this wheel, like the color wheel. We're going to make a wheel of what's stealing our children, because this is what's happening. If abortion doesn't take the baby out in the womb, well, the babies are born, and what's the first thing they get? They start getting these stupid vaccines full of aluminum and formaldehyde, and we can talk about that on another show. And then it's that whole government indoctrination and da-da-da-da. And then the promiscuity industry. So they go into health class and everything else, and it's teaching our girls and our boys to have sex outside of wedlock, have sex early, and have a lot of sex, because we're uncontrollable animals, right? Right, Josh? We're just uncontrollable animals.
We are.
So there's no self-control. And all that comes from Margaret Sanger and the Marxist worldview or secular humanist worldview. So what happens, though, is that girl, and it's so sad to say, the girls are being put on birth control because their mothers grew up with this mindset as well. So we are now 2, if not 3 generations into, oh my God, I better go put my 10-year-old on birth control pills because, I wouldn't want her at 11 or 12 going to have sex with a boyfriend. And this is happening all over the place. These young kids, girls being put on estrogen-based birth control pills, making this perfect temple that God made work inappropriately. It breaks it. It breaks the young woman's cycle, and it overdoses her with estrogen. Now, those pills don't work all the time like they're supposed to. And let's say eventually she starts going to having sex, and she gets pregnant, 16, 17, 18, 22 years old. Now she's scared. And now she goes in to have her let's say her first abortion. I'm gonna get into the science but if we run out of time, we'll just cover this on another night. But I want to set the stage, because the stage is more important even than the science of it, because this is what's happening to our girls, and now they're messing around with the boys. So the girl gets pregnant, she's scared. She goes behind her mommy and her daddy's back, because now this thing in all 50 states called a judicial bypass. Thank you, Planned Parenthood, and a bunch of freaking liberal judges. The judge can make the decision of your daughter. If she stands in front of that liberal judge, the judge can make the decision if that child is mature enough to handle a private, confidential abortion where mom and dad don't even have to know. Okay, that's a screw up too, because not all abortions are equal. Sometimes that abortionist punctures the young woman's, the teenager's uterus, punctures the uterus and severs the intestines. That happens every year. It's not thousands of times, but God only knows. Is it dozens of times? So now the girl who asked mom if, she woke up or whatever, she comes home from school because maybe she left school in privacy to go have that abortion. Now she's running low-grade fever. Now the next morning she's running 101, 102 temperature. Mom, I think I have the flu. Little does mom know, she doesn't have the flu. She has sepsis, right? And so in the back of my book, I actually give a list of teenage girls who lost their lives because of abortionist errors. Okay, but need I say any more on that? So now she's had the abortion. She just lost her best protection against breast cancer. But what does Planned Parenthood do? Puts a pack of estrogen-based birth control pills in her hand, which, by the way, she can take behind her mommy and her daddy's back too, right? So mom and dad don't even know now she's overdosing on estrogen, which can cause all sorts of mental and physical issues. Now she has just set herself up on a trajectory for breast cancer by the time she's 25, 28, 32, 35, 37 years old, because she just aborted the best protection she has. Okay. All right. So anyway, I could keep rolling, but I don't know if we want to set all this up for.
Yeah, no. So actually, I was going to pull this up for you.
Okay. And we can just go over like the structure and like some of the basic, but I encourage everybody to go watch that. Contemporary hormonal contraception. Why don't we go to a different one, which I have it teed up on my screen if I could be co-host, or if you go to the brochure called Abortion and Breast Cancer Connection, I think that's what it's called. And while you're looking for that, like all of these are really good, but there's a little trifold and you can download it for free. You don't even have to pay to get the print version. Just download it. And I encourage all your listeners, to get this. But here's the structure of the breast. There are 4 types of breast lobules. Remember, Josh told you we're going to be talking about boobies. Okay, so here we go. You just thought it would be in a different context. So when a female's born, she's born with type 1 lobules. They're present at birth. I think it's about 85% of the breast tissue is called type 1. And then type 2, more of that forms. There we go, right there. That's what everybody needs to get. And it tells you everything I'm going over right here. Yeah, if you scoot it up a little bit, breast lobule formation on the left, right there. You pop that up a little bit. So type 2, that forms during puberty when estrogen levels rise and the breasts begin to develop. That's just a fact of life. When the girl's 11, 12 years old, of course, McDonald's, with all that growth hormone, fake beef, all that's making young women start their periods early, which, by the way, that's one of the risks of increasing breast cancer. Early menses or menarche, early. Well, good Lord have mercy. All the beef that you buy at the grocery store has growth hormone in it. So that, to a large degree, is causing the girls to start their periods early, which increases their risk for breast cancer. Then what happens is type 3, that forms after type 4 lobules stop producing milk. So the type 4, so when the young woman becomes pregnant and if she will carry her baby at least to the 32nd week of pregnancy, the type 4 lobule turns into type 3, and 3 and 4 become highly resistant to breast cancer. The baby produces a hormone which matures the young woman's breasts, and they become highly resistant to breast cancer. But that's not what's happening in America with 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 million abortions per year. The young woman just discovered she's pregnant. She's whatever, 18, 19, 20 years old. She goes and has the abortion, whether it's, and that's a whole nother talk we can have one night, the chemical abortions. Holy smoke, that's human pesticide. I hired a guy today.
Well, and it's also, there's the aspect here is that people are not being properly informed.
No.
And this comes into the idea of informed consent, in that, you know, these kids who are trying to make their decisions on their own, that the government's allowing to make these decisions on their own. They're going in there, they're being told that it's 100% completely safe, that there are no side effects. And this is the illusion, that the deception that is played against them, when there is actually documented medical study after study after study that shows the dangers and the harms, not only to you know, obviously the baby, which is death, but then to these children who are having the baby, or to these young mothers.
Right. It's mental, you know, psychological, it's physical, and it's emotional. There are women, like next time you go to the dentist, ask the dental hygienist, have you ever had patients, females, who cannot stand the sound of that thing that sucks the water out of the mouth? It reminds the post-abortive women of their abortion 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But here's the other tragedy now, Josh, is back then it was the abortionist doing it to the women. Not so much anymore. It's about it's higher than what they're saying. It's about 70%, could be 75%. Of abortions now are not surgical abortions. They are chemical abortions. These young women are popping 2 pills, one that stops progesterone, so the new life inside her cannot attach, or if it has attached to the uterine lining, it thins out, and then she ends up losing the baby. It's turned the young woman into the abortionist. You talk about psychological trauma. You know, she had the choice of taking pill 1. And I want to go ahead and say this because everybody and every young man out there needs to know this. If your girlfriend or your wife has taken pill 1, if she will just not take that second pill, she can actually take a different one called the pill reversal, and it reverses the effects of the first pill. If she will just take the right pill within, I think it's within 72 hours, but I can't remember, 48 or 72 hours. And there's a phone number, and I want to give it now. Maybe you could put it in if there's a chat line or something, because everybody should have this phone number, pill reversal. Here we go. Store it in your phone, and you might be able to save a life. It's 877-558-0333. That's the number to the pill reversal hotline. So if a young woman today just swallowed the first, it's a human pesticide.
What's the number?
Yeah, it's 877-558-0333. And you might be able to save a life. So let's everybody I keep it in my phone called pill reversal. And that's the good news. And I've interviewed before the doctor who discovered this. So it's like, oh my gosh, we can actually reverse the effects of that first pill. So anyway, it's all sorts of trauma. And then, you know, because it is psychological trauma, it may not show itself until days, weeks, months, years. But one thing Dr. Angela Lanfranchi discovered when she wrote the book called Complications, and they looked at all sorts of surveys, they collected their own data. it's just so many women decades later, when these women are old women in their 60s, 70s, or 80s, and they think about what they did decades earlier, and that there is a better way. There's a better way. And the good news is, for almost every single abortion, there is an infertile couple who wants to adopt a baby. So isn't it better? Because every time there's an abortion, love is destroyed. Because you're a father, I'm a mother. Children bring love into the world. Children give adults the opportunity to love and to be loved. And we don't talk about that enough. We fill our lives with politics and everything else. What about love? The father of the abortion industry, Josh, said, tell America to love one another. Abortion is not love.
I 100% agree with that, but unfortunately, you're in America.
Yeah, well, but we can change that. We can change culture. And I think, and I'll just kind of wrap up my part on this. I believe we can change culture by loving people with the truth, not trying to win the pro-life arena by politics. We can win it by love. Okay. There is a better way than killing a baby. It's called adoption. Okay. That's a win-win for everybody. Okay. And I remember I was totally fit and in shape, as so many, first pregnant women are. And granted, I was married, but I remember it's like, I didn't even notice I was like with child until I didn't start growing out of my skirts until about 4.5 months. So out of 9 months, it was like maybe a 4-month inconvenience. That's a whole lot better than regretting for decades.
Yeah.
It's like for 4 months, I was inconvenienced, 4 or 5 months. And I mean, I didn't look at it, but if I did have it with that kind of lens on, it's like, how much did it really inconvenience me? 4 to 5 months, So, but here's something else. Why would anybody, even if they're pro-choice, why would they want to advance Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood's Black genocide? Why would they want to advance that? Even Dr. Nathanson admitted that to legalize abortion would fast track Sanger's Black genocide. Why would anybody want to increase breast cancer? Why would anybody, Josh, want to eviscerate parental rights? There's a better way. So when I went to the fundraiser, I wanted to see, what does it look like to stand in a room with really radical pro-abortion people? And I went to a fundraiser for NARAL in Virginia. It was the Virginia-based NARAL, Pro-Choice America. I don't know what year it was. You can probably look it up. It's when Terry McAuliffe was governor, and the governor in the running was Northam. He was running for Virginia governor. I forget what year. And I went there, and I've never seen such radical people talk about, they sugarcoat it, because it's all about a woman's choice. They don't use the word abortion. They don't talk about what's really happening. It's just a choice. And it's a decision between a woman and her doctor, which it's not. A doctor has nothing to do with a woman deciding to kill a baby. But anyway, it was just totally radical. It makes a hilarious story because I was making my little selfie videos, but I'm just here to say that there is a better way. And that's why I think Dr. Nathanson, in his resignation letter to NARAL back in January 1975, 2 years to the day of Roe v. Wade, and that's why I named my book what I named it, What If We've Been Wrong? I took that right out of his resignation letter, and because Dr. Nathan says, what if we've been wrong? I forget his exact statement. It was a powerful statement. What an inconceivable, incalculable mistake, I'm paraphrasing, we will have made. And I, Dr. Nathanson, can no longer afford the $10 a year dues and the hubris, the arrogance of certainty. So yes, we're in America, but yes, Josh, there was slavery. And there's nobody left in our country pretty much who thinks we ought to have legalized slavery. There is a better way, but I believe we got to first get to the heart of the matter. And no matter which window you want to climb into, front door with Dr. Bernard Nathanson, left it all out there. I didn't even go over all the propaganda, but we got one window with the Negro Project, one window with breast cancer, one window with the loss of parental rights. And then there's a whole nother thing, which we can talk about some other time, but it's a whole voting strategy, which deceived many pro-lifers. Many people are pro-life. It convinced them to go vote for baby killers.
Yeah.
I say there's a better way, and I appreciate you having me on.
I think there is a better way, and I think that loving people with truth is the positive message. And for everybody out there, if you want to join Terry in this movement and learn a lot more about what she's doing and what she's got going on, you can go to hoseaforyou.org, or you can go to hoseaforyou.org/redpill. And Hosea is spelled HOSEA, the number 4 YOU.org.
And join our community. Can you tell them about the community?
That's right. And so she also has a community that has a course on there that you can take and learn about how you've been deceived and what to do about it, and learn all about what's in these pamphlets that you can go out there and purchase on Hosea's website. And that is raiseupyourvoice.com, isn't it? Raiseupyourvoice.com. Yeah, that's it. I know that's the website. Raise Up Your Voice. I didn't have that one up on the screen,
and
but
you
can find it with this link right here. And if anybody's on the social Red Pill, what you'll notice is that it's the same platform. So raiseupyourvoice.com is on that same platform. So check it out. Go on over, visit Terry over there, and try to learn more. Terry's going to be joining us again here in another few weeks, and you'll be seeing her on more other shows as well. But Terry, I appreciate you coming out with me. I know it's Friday for everybody out there, so everybody's out doing things and stuff. But the people that'll watch this, please go visit Terry, hoseaforyou.org/redpill. All right, guys. Thanks, Terry. We'll talk to you here soon. Everybody else, much love, respect, God bless. Take care. Have a great night. You'll have Jeff coming up here with Conversation on the Fringe. We'll see you then.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"